New York City gave Amazon a real opportunity here. And all we asked was that they be a good neighbor and be part of the community. And clearly, they weren't ready to do that.
Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. It's a political and economic bombshell that is still reverberating around the city and the state. Amazon is out. The retail giant revealed Thursday that it scrapped plans to build a new headquarters, HQ2, in Long Island City, a move that was supposed to bring around 25,000 jobs to the city, but was met with fierce resistance from many lawmakers and activists.
I mean, it shows that everyday Americans still have the power to organize and fight for their communities, and they can have more say in this country than the richest man in the world.
The tech giant decision left politicians pointing fingers over who is to blame for the deal's downfall. It's also a major blow to Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio, both of whom fought to bring Amazon to Queens. So what are the political and economic ramifications of Amazon's decision? And what's next for New York? For answers, I'm joined now by Gotham Gazette Executive Editor, Ben Max. Ben, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So Ben, we've talked about this before, and I told you this anecdote. I remember October 2017. I was in a big meeting, I think it was at Google headquarters, and there are a lot of elected officials from New York City. And the talk, even though it wasn't supposed to be the talk that was headlining the event, was all about Amazon possibly coming to New York, and everybody wanted it. They all loved it. They wanted the business, they wanted the jobs. Many of those same elected officials were in the vanguard, in the forefront of the fight against the Amazon deal. What happened? How did we get here?
So I think it was a few things. One, some of the political ground has shifted. Victories like we saw with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, some of the defeats of the former members of the Independent Democratic Conference in the state Senate. You've seen some primary challenges from the left where incumbents have lost, and that has made a lot of incumbents nervous about whether they could wind up with a challenge from the left. So that's a little bit of a shift. But the other thing that happened was the process that unfolded was completely behind closed doors between Amazon and the city and the state, and local elected officials like to have their say in things that are going to come to their neighborhoods.
But the local elected officials knew that the conversations were going on behind closed doors. They didn't complain. As far as I can recall, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a fair point. Very good point. We need to point out that the folks that have been bashing this since the deal was announced and saying you left us out and what about local input, they knew the process was ongoing, and they probably should have been shouting, hey, we know these negotiations are happening, let us in. They didn't do that. At the same time, they did not, I don't think, estimate what the city and the state were going to hatch with Amazon in terms of going around local approval, local input by using the state level, what's called general project plan, as opposed to the city level land use process. That gets a lot in the weeds, but it certainly relates to the process of local input.
But aside, concretely, what were some of the things about the deal, the actual deal, that politicians and activists didn't like?
So they would have wanted say in terms of the surrounding infrastructure. What are the investments? What are the offsets? School seats, transit, maybe even open space considerations. And then, of course, there's the subsidies involved. Roughly $3 billion in city and state tax breaks or a cash capital grant to help build the headquarters. Now, what folks really need to understand, though, and there's been a lot of misinformation and misinterpretation of this, is that most of that $3 billion is not money that's just sitting around being given to Amazon. It was going to be partial rebates of taxes the company would be paying. So now that tax money is not coming to then be repaid. The capital grant, yes, that was a cash grant to help build the headquarters, mostly to offset the use of union labor.
Right. So what about the union, the union factor in this? That Amazon is a non-union company, if I'm right. That was a big bone of contention?
So one of the key things that happened in this falling apart was actually the city council hearings that were held. There was a lot of local opposition, a lot of rallies, press conferences, op-eds, et cetera. But City Council Speaker Corey Johnson worked with the local council member Jimmy Van Bramer to hold 2 oversight hearings at which Amazon officials and city officials didn't have great answers to some questions and gave answers that the city council didn't like, including on the unionization issue.
Okay, so what are the economic ramifications for the city and the state of this fallen deal?
Well, there's a big question now around how companies around the world will see New York City and New York State. There were particulars to this deal around the subsidies and the location and the secretive process and the bidding one city and one state against each other. So we can't relate this to a universal issue. But you talk about business leaders looking at New York and its climate and wondering about setting up shop here versus perhaps some other cities. New York still has some great advantages, of course.
So it's not only about losing the money and the possible jobs, but it's about the perception of how friendly New York City is to businesses?
Absolutely. Not only businesses, but also in the tech sector. The city has been looking to diversify its economy away from real estate and Wall Street, and the tech sector has been maybe that third big leg, and it has been developing with Google and others. So the question again is, did the city just lose out on important diversification of its economy? And then there's the tax benefits, the revenue that was supposed to come in from the company and its fairly highly paid employees.
Now, how about the political ramifications? Because as we've discussed before, and as most of our viewers know, Governor Cuomo and Bill de Blasio were very strong proponents of this. They made the deal. In fact, Cuomo joked that he would be willing to change his name to Amazon Cuomo if they came. What happens to them? And what about the politicians, the elected officials who were against the deal? Do you think that they were surprised by this? Forget it, bye-bye.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were caught off guard, including in the opposition. And there were some news reports.
Sure.
There were also some comments from Amazon executives about, we want to come somewhere where we're welcome at one of those city council hearings. I don't think anybody expected it to fall apart this quickly, this early. But Amazon, I think, decided to just cut any losses and get out without having to go through the process that some other companies might have gone through, or that we see on a more local level when you have a big real estate project that somebody wants to build, there's local opposition, there's a negotiation. Amazon, it seems, felt like they did the negotiation, and that was it. The deal that was announced is the deal that goes forward.
Non-negotiable. It's like the UE and Brexit.
Yeah, I mean, that it was supposed to be binding, even though it was a memorandum of understanding. Maybe there'd be some adjustments as they went through the process, but they were not ready to renegotiate.
In 30 seconds, in its bye-bye letter, Amazon said 70% of New Yorkers are still supportive of this deal. Is that true? And if it is true, what's going to be the political consequences in the long term?
Polls definitely showed that New Yorkers favored Amazon coming to Queens, but there were some mixed results around the subsidies. And I always, caution people to not put too much faith in polls. But I do think it was a more popular than not move. There's some real questions about how this fallout looks for the governor, the mayor, and the local elected officials that opposed it. Sure. The mayor certainly has been trying to save some face here, pointing to Amazon, as you read, while the governor is pointing fingers at the state Senate Democrats, including the local senator, Michael Gianaris.
Wow. All right, so this is not going to be the last of this story, so we'll be talking about it again, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Sounds good.